Okay, we're in the exposition. This is film number 3. We're doing the second theme. So this is theme 2 right here. And I'm just going to spoil it right now. This is a double period. Okay? Meaning that it has a periodic structure where it's got an A section or a question antecedent, and that ends with a less conclusive cadence than the consequent or answer part. And I'm just going to point those out right now. You can see that this bum, ba-da-dum, bum, bum, bum is also done right there. So this here is the end of the question, and then it's parallel. It's going to do the same thing. And this here is the end of the answer, which means that this is the beginning of transition number 2. So we're looking at this space right here. Remember that we are no longer in the key of B flat, we are in the key of F, right? And I think what we want to do is we hopefully have listened to this a bunch, but it's like bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum ba-da-da-da-dum ba-da-dum bum ba-da-dum. You can miss it, but there's a cadence right there, and that's the internal cadence for your question right there. Okay? So in the key of F, here's my nice 1 chord right there. Bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum. Well, that looks like a B flat chord right there, which will be my 4 chord. It's rather saccharine for these composers. And then, you know, we have an A and we have an F, and this feels like a non-chord tone. I think this is like a 1/6 here, right there. Okay. And then as we go over here, I apologize for the camera going in and out. It's the technology I have. You have your score with you. You can sort of keep up and go along. Well, I mean, this is a G, B, natural, D, and F right there. So that's a G dominant chord, which is my 2 chord, but it's in 5 of. So it's the 5, 6, 5 of the C, which is my 5 chord, right? Right, and then we have the C and the G hanging over. This is my 5 chord right there, right? And then I have the same thing again, happens twice in a row. So, you know, Mozart, like all these composers of the time, were great keyboardists and improvisers, and you know, so that even when they're composing and they're not improvising, they're still using a lot of the same things. Like he says, okay, I'll do this thing, and then I'll do it again, right? And then I'll cadence. And he has these formulas in his head, right? Okay, and so then we look here, there's an F. I know I've skipped ahead, but I like my cadences backwards. So there's an F and an A, that's a 1 chord, right? Here's an E and a B flat, suggests an EGB, which is my 7 chord, right there, right? And then here, it's tough to say. I've got a C, right, and I've got a D. Could be a 6 chord, guess, right? We're in the key of F. Depends on how we want to look at this. So if you look at this as a non-chord tone, then you could be like 1, 7, 1. You know, be-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. I don't know. It feels, you know, we're going to put a question mark there. We don't have to know everything. If you feel like this is an appoggiatura, then this is just a 1/6. If you feel like no, they're both important notes as you listen to it, then it's a, you know, it's a D minor 7 chord, and that would be like my 6, 7. I think either of these is fine because the 5 chord will go to 1 or to that, right? Depends on how you hear it. Okay, I'm gonna ignore that red herring right there. By the way, this is an IAC, right? Which means that we're gonna end up with a half cadence or something right here, right? We can ignore this for purposes of the period structure, right? And then it's like ba-da-da-dee-dum, ba-da-dum. Well, this is all fancy, but this is a B flat chord right there, right? So it feels like it's a 4 chord, right? After the 1. And then we are in bass clef, yeah. And then this looks like an inverted 1 chord right there. And this helps me ignore information that could be confusing about is this a chord tone or not a chord tone. You know, Mozart's outlining what the chord tones are here. So this is 1/6, which means that that's not a chord tone, that's not a chord tone, that's not a chord tone, and that's not a chord tone. It's much easier than trying to say, well, what if, what if, what if, okay? And then we're coming to our halfway point right here. This is a half cadence right here, right? You can see the C and the E and all of this. This is a 5 chord right there. And so we can kind of build backwards from there. Or we can just tackle this from the beginning. I think this is a non-chord tone or a root and a seventh. And so if we look at this, bim, bum, B, bum, bum, right? If you think of all this as a 5 chord, then that's like a 5, 4, 3, 6, 5, and then here probably this is my 1 chord. This is probably a non-chord tone. Feels like poggiatura-ish to me. So there's my 1, and then here is a D and a, it's like, it depends on how you want to hear it. If you want to hear it as the B flat chord, because we've had B flat earlier, then it's a 4 chord. If you just want to take it on face value and say that this F chord erased the B flat because this was a non-chord tone, then all you have there is a D and an F, which means 6. However, I don't know, kind of feels like another B flat chord because we had that there, right? Or could be an incomplete 4, 6, it's not sure, right? Depends on how you want to do that. And then 5. Okay, then we come back around. That was A, big A, right? Which was like a and a B. And now we're on the B section, and this is like an A prime, because it's very similar, right? So if we look, they're really, really similar, right? This is my 1 chord right here. This is my 4 chord right here. This is my 1, 6. And you kind of go like, what a cheater, and I don't think of it as cheating at all. I think of it as unity. There's so much going on. It's so nice to have something that's familiar, right? There and there and there, right? And then just repeat it again. Okay. And then here we go again. It's a similar kind of cadence to the one we did here. It's just that the lines are kind of mixed up. Like this was D, E, F, and this is D, E, F, right? And then C, B flat, A, C, B flat, A. But now he's put this extra chromatic passing tone in there, and he's also doubled up harmony on top. Gives us a little more to say, yep, this really was a 6 chord, right? And this just really feels like this is inconsequential, like my 7 chord right there. Just revoiced it and dressed it up a bit. There's another incomplete or imperfect authentic cadence right there. All right, and it starts off the same, but then it has to drive to a cadence. So, well, we can take a look and go D, D, D. Is it another 4 chord? Well, when it gets tough, the best thing to do is to skip to the end of the maze and work backwards. Here's my 1 chord right there, right? And here's my 5 chord right there. This is a perfect authentic cadence, which I'm just going to pause for a minute and draw this out for you. You have your question, you have your answer, right? I call that A, but I call that B, but this is really your answer, right? Sorry. Or antecedent and consequent. And the first one went from here to here. It had an IAC and then had a half cadence. So this is the one that counts. And then this one had another, and this was A and A prime. This one had an IAC, and then this one was a PAC. So these are the 2 cadences that count, and because, well, double periods are almost always parallel because they're so long that by the time you get to the second part of it, you want to be reminded that these are related thematically. Okay? All right, I can see we're running off the page a bit here. All right, so that being said, the A suggests 1, 6, 4 with the C because it's an F chord. That's my 5. And then here I've got a B flat and a D. I don't think these are anything, so this is a 4 chord, right? And then I have, looks like, it's like you would think that's important, but I don't know, it feels just like more, right? Like D, 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 D. These are probably non-chord tones, I think, right? So this is also 4. All right, let's go backwards. Well, this feels like an F chord right here, F, A's, and C's. It's my 1 chord. This feels like an inversion of that right there. Hi, cat. I'm making a video, you can't be here. Okay. So let's go back, and the real question is just like this lone D, what do we do with that? You'll notice that this feels a little bit like G minor, right? Because we have this like so la ti do, the melodic minor, and then it's like a little tiny thing here. Let's just grab things that are easy to catch right now, okay? Like for instance, we could go eighth note by eighth note and grab these guys, or we could look for bigger structures here. This B flat, and the G B flat thing here feels like a G minor chord. So that's going to be a nice 2-6 that we can grab right there, right? And then we have like a B flat and a G. Maybe it's more of the same. Maybe the whole thing is 2-6, right? And then that would make sense to feel like this is my 5 chord. I know we have these things going on here, but if you look, there's a E and a G and a C and an E and another E, and these things are like passing one chord and passing 1-6. I guess we could do that. We're going to call this a incomplete 5 chord, right? C, E, G, right? So we're going to call this a 5, 6, 4. These are little fragments, right, because of the texture. And this is a D and an F. It's going to be like a passing 1, right? Or let me think about it. Sorry, passing the B flat chord, missing the B flat. So that would be like my 2, right? And this again is a 6, 4, right? And then we have finally, these are little passing things. I think this whole thing feels like a dominant, so we can call this like C, E, right? B flat. So I think this is our 5, 6, and then if you want to catch that, it looks like another B flat and D right there. Oh, B flat and D. So that would be like another 4, right? And it would be 6 right there. You don't have to get that measured if you can hear that this is all dominant sort of prep with filler to get us to the 1, 2, right? 5, 1. Okay. So what does that mean for this? Well, this is a G. Feels like maybe this is a D chord then, right? You don't have any other information to tell us that we're in a different key, even though that's sort of cute right there. But we're just going to call it D chord, and in this key, that would be a 6 chord, wouldn't it? Right there, like that. 7th, and 6 likes to go to 2, which likes to go to 5, which likes to go to 1. Okay, that's the opening of the exposition. Now we have a transition coming up, and then a coda at the end.